Hello, Sudoku friends, and welcome to an evil puzzle by Sudoku.com. I'm not using Sudoku.com's website, I'm using SudokuExchange.com because it enables me to enter the puzzle and you will better be able to see where my mouse is going because I can do a little bit of markup like so. And it might help some of you viewers to track what I'm doing. This is the most difficult level available to me at Sudoku.com, and it has, I think, about 23 givens. And being an evil level Sudoku, it's bound to be quite difficult. So I hope that you will be able to follow along, and I will go as slow as possible. What I can find here is a 4 here and here, and a 4 down here, and they put a 4 in this cell, doesn't it? And that gives me a 4 for one of these two cells here, this cell or this cell. Which one is going to be? I don't know yet. But I know that the 4 here blocks this cell and the 4 here blocks these two cells. So a 4 for this box will have to go either here or here. So a ghost 4 here and this 4 puts a 4 in this cell in column 9 because we have a 4 already in this row. So far, so good. Now, the 3 here, of course, puts a 3 in this cell because of the 3 in this row. That's easy enough. And now one of these two cells will have to be a 3. We have a 5 and an 8 here, and we have a 5 and an 8 here. That means that these two cells will have to be a 5 and an 8 in some order. And of course, this 7 puts a 7 in one of these 3 cells, and therefore, because of the 7 here, a 7 will have to go in one of these 2 cells. And this 2 and this 2 will put a 2 in one of these 2 cells. The reason I'm mentioning this is that now I know that I will have to look for 2s in these 4 cells here. I won't have to bother with 2s in any other cells than these 4s. And of course, there's already a 2 in this row. So technically, this cell plus these 2, one of these 3 cells will have to be a 2. There's a 5 here, and there's a 5 up here that blocks all of these cells here from being 5s. So this cell now has got to be a 5. We are making a little bit of progress, I think. The 9 here blocks a 9 from these 2 cells. Therefore, a 9 will have to go in one of these 2 cells. And these 2 cells can contain a 9, and so does this row. So in effect, all of these cells now cannot contain a 9. And that means that a 9 for this row here, row 4, will have to go in this cell because we have a 9 up here. And now one of these 2 cells will have to be a 9. And a 9 will also have to go in one of these 3 cells together with the 7 we found before. And actually, we can enter the 7 now because we found the 3. So this 7 blocks these 3 cells, and this 7 blocks these 3 cells. And this is now a 7. And one of these 2 other cells will have to be a 9 because we have a 9 in this top row. So this cell cannot be a 9. So we need to find a 1 and a 9 and also a 6 to go in these 3 empty cells in this column 9. And this cell must be a 1 or it must be a 6. We have a 2 that blocks all of these cells from being a 2, and we have this 2, and that blocks this cell, and of course this cell also. So a 2 for this 3 by 3 block will have to go here, won't it? And now we just need to find a 1 and a 6 and a 9 for these 3 empty cells. Now there's a 1 here, and there's a 1 here, so it's clear that this cell must be a 1 now. And because this cell cannot be a 9, it will have to be a 6, and the 9 will go down here. And that makes this cell a 6. And let's look at this 6 here and the 6 here. Together they leave just this cell for a 6 in row 6. And now one of these two cells will have to be a 6. So now we just need to find a 3, 8, and a 9 for these 3 cells. And it looks pretty simple because of the 9 here. That puts a 9 in this cell, and this 8 here puts an 8 in this cell. And therefore, a 3 will have to go here. These two cells now will have to be a 1 and a 9, and these two will have to be a 4 and a 7. And I think that I can place the 9 because as we remember, these two cells will have to be a 5 and an 8. And we have a 9 up here that blocks these two cells. So a 9 for this box, and therefore for row 3 will have to go in one of these two cells. It can't go here, of course, because of this 9. So what's important is not as much where the 9 will go, but rather that it will go in this row. So we have a 9 in the top row, we have a 9, a ghost 9 now in row 3. We need to find a 9 for row 2. And none of these cells can be used for a 9 because of these two. They have to be a 5 and an 8, and we have a 9 already in this box. So a 9 will have to go here or here. And we already have a 9 in this column, and therefore the 9 will go in this cell. The last digit here, of course, now is a 1. And the 1 here blocks, of course, all of these cells from being 1s. And since these still have to be a 5 and an 8, then now we know that a 1 will have to go in one of these two cells because we need a 1 for this 3 by 3 box. And we have a 1 down here that blocks all of these cells. Therefore, the 1 will have to go here. And now the 1 here and the 1 down here block all of these cells from being 1s. So we need to find a 1 for this column. And the 1 clearly can't go in these 3 cells because we have a 1 already in the box. And it can't go here. And there is a 1 here that blocks these 2 cells. And therefore, this cell must be a 1. I'm wondering a little bit when we get to the evil part of this puzzle. Remember, it is an evil puzzle. Well, let's just continue and see what happens. These two cells here are now a 3 and a 7 pair, a remote pair as it were. And because of the 3 here, here, and the 3 here, we know that the 3 will have to go either here or here anyway. So this might be a 3 or it might be a 7, and so will this cell. What can go into these 4 remaining cells? We need to find a 3, 6, 7, and a 9. 3, 6, 7, and a 9. The 9, of course, will have to go in one of these, and the 3 we don't know. The 7 we don't know. And the 6, let's see. Yes, the 6 will have to go in this row as well, and therefore one of these two will have to be a 6. And having said that, I just realized, of course, that the 7 here blocks these two cells from being a 7, and this 7 blocks these 3 cells from being a 7. So one of these two cells will have to be a 7. And since now we have blocked all of these cells here from being 7s, and we know that these two cells will have to be a 5 and an 8, we now know that this cell is a 7. And that gives us a 7 and a 4 that we were still missing from this box up here. And now the 7 here and the 7 here, of course, these two 7s, they give us a 7 for the corner, and that makes this cell a 3. And that makes this cell a 3 because we have a 3 that blocks these 3 cells from being a 3. And we have a 3 here and we have a 3 here. So this cell is a 3 now. Now these two cells have to be a 5 and an 8, and that makes these two cells a 6 and a 9. And that leaves only a 2 for this cell right here. And the 2 here blocks these cells, and this 2 blocks these cells. That gives me a 2 for this cell like so. The 1 here blocks this cell from being a 1, and this 1 blocks these 3 cells from being a 1, and that means that a 1 will have to go here. These two cells now have to be a 7 and a 5, I believe. Yes, a 7 and a 5, and we have a 7 already that blocks a 7 from this cell. So this is now a 5 and this is a 7. And remember the 5, 8 here, I'm sure you do because I think I have repeated myself a dozen times already. So this is now an 8 and this is of course a 5. And that means that this 5 and the 5 here puts a 5 in one of these two cells. These 3 empty cells will have to be a 2, 6 and an 8. And we have a 2 and a 6 already that can see this cell. Therefore, this must be an 8. And these have to be a 2 and a 6. And that makes these two a 3 and an 8. Since we have an 8 up here that blocks this cell down here from being an 8, and we have this 8 that blocks these two cells, we can place an 8 in this cell like so. And this cell now will have to be a 3, because that's the last number that is going to be missing from this row after we find these 3 numbers that go here. So a 3 it is, and we have a 3 up here and we have a 3 here now. So we need to find a 3 for these 3 cells, and we have a 3 here, we have a 3 here already, and that means that this cell will have to be a 3. And I think that this puzzle is very close to being solved now. For the bottom row, we still need to find a 2 and an 8 and a 6. Well, we have an 8 here. We have an 8 here, and that pretty much forces an 8 to go into this corner. And now the 8 here, and the 8 here, and this 8 gives me an 8 for this cell. So what else is missing? A 2 and a 6, of course, for these two cells. And we have a 2 up here. I just saw that now. So this cell must be a 6 and this must be a 2. And that gives us a 2 for this cell, doesn't it? And a 6 for this one, 6 for this one, and a 9 for this. It's coming together quite nicely, I think. 4, 5, and 7 for these. Okay, we've got a 7 here and we've got a 7 up here. So of course this cell will have to be a 7. And now a 4 and a 5 for these two. there's a 5 here, and that makes this cell a 4 and this a 5. And of course, the 5 here and here puts a 5 in this cell, like so. And we got this 5 now that blocks these two cells, and that makes this a 5. And this has got to be a 9. And that makes this cell a 6. And now we need to find a 1 for one of these two cells, and we need to find a 2, a 1 and a 2 for these two cells. There's a 2 here already, so the 1 will go here and the 2 here. Now we got this 1 and this 1. That gives us a 1 for this cell, and the last digit for this column is going to be a 4. And that makes this cell a 9. Now we just need to get a 4 for this cell, and we need to find a 6 for this one. And we solved this puzzle, I would say, quite quickly. It was supposed to be an evil puzzle, and perhaps it was, but we didn't require any pencil marks at all to do this puzzle. And that's a little disappointing, but nevertheless, I hope that you enjoyed it and that you will come back for more. Thank you for watching this solve, and see you back again here soon. Bye for now.